MetsMusings is an unofficial, independent podcast covering New York's National League Baseball team. It is not affiliated in any way with Major League Baseball or the New York Mets.
Hi, this is Ron Darling. This is Skip Lockwood.
Hi, I'm Ron Swoboda of the 69 New York Mets, and you're listening to Mets Musings with Gary Mack.
Now it's time for some New York Mets baseball talk. Here's Gary Mack bringing you the latest news and analysis from Mets Nation and the world of baseball on another edition of Mets Musings.
And hello and welcome to another edition of Mets Musings. Happy New Year, everybody. And we have started the year with a bang as we record this. The Mets deal, or have made a deal, for Francisco Lindor, Carlos Carrasco of the Cleveland Indians. Yes, the Mets will be getting Carlos Carrasco, right-handed starting pitcher, and Francisco Lindor from the Cleveland Indians for Andres Gimenez, Ahmad Rosario, Isaiah Green, and pitcher Josh Wolf. This is a big deal for the Metsies, make no mistake about it. It's a good deal, though I do have some reservations, minor reservations, nothing serious about it. My main concern is that Lindor is only signed till the end of the year. I don't know what Carrasco's status is, but Lindor is signed till the end of the year. If you cannot sign him to a long-term contract, it kind of takes the blush off the rose, or whatever you want to call it, for me. But it is a fantastic deal. They gave up very little, though. Gimenez proved he was a major league player last year. Of course, Rosario, up and down in his major league career, but shown he can play here. And Josh Wolf, excellent pitcher. Don't know too much about Green. I think he was just a throw-in in the deal. But the Mets make a biggie. They make a big deal in getting Carlos Carrasco. They needed another starter. They accomplished that. They needed... they didn't really need a shortstop. They could have got by with Gimenez and Rosario for the next 10 years. But they get the premier shortstop in baseball, in Francisco Lindor. And they give up, shall we say, very little. Again, my main concern is the contract situation. Lindor's going to want a lot of money. Does this preclude them from signing Springer? Because they're either going to have to pay Lindor, extend his contract this year, or try to extend him starting next year, I should say. And how will that affect them going after Springer? Especially with Toronto having a big-time offer apparently on the table right now. So all of that needs to be shaked out. But as of now, let's celebrate. The Mets have made a huge trade, and this is the start. I guess this may be the official start of the Cohen-Alomar Alderson era. As yes, I know they signed James McCann, but this is a big deal, and I'll tell you what, James McCann's got to be happy too, because this takes a lot of the pressure off of him. What do I mean by that? Well, he was the big free agent signing of the winter for the Mets. There would have been a lot of pressure coming to spring training. He may have tried to do too much, being that he was the big guy hired in the offseason, the big free agent. And now this kind of takes all of that off his shoulders and puts it on Lindor's shoulders, if you will. But now you've got a lot of offense on this team. I mean, between Conforto and Lindor and McNeil and Davis is a good offensive piece when he plays. Alonso, if he can return to his rookie year production, and Dominic Smith out in left field or Nimmo out in left field, you got some good production on offensive production, and it tightens up the defense. It allows McNeil to stay at second base, or if they decide to acquire a second baseman, McNeil can stay at third. They can put J.D. Davis in at third if they wish, and leave McNeil at second. That would weaken it, but it would strengthen it up the middle between McCann and McNeil and Lindor. And if they could land Springer, this will be a good defensive team, and something that the Mets, as we all know, have not had in a very long time. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. It just, it's this trade, and this was a big trade, and the Mets pulled it off. And kudos to them, and congratulations, and let's hope it all works out. I think it will. Lindor is a special kind of player. It'd just be nice if they had, and they may. We don't know yet all the details. So it would be nice to know whether they have a window of time to try to sign him now, or if they're going to forego that and just figure they'll try to sign him during the season or in the off season. Or once he comes over, they'll try to sign him. But, they're going for it, and let's hope they're going for it wisely. They have shortstop backup in Luis Guillerme and Ronnie Maurizio, who's 19, I think. So, and he's supposed to be the best in the system right now. So there are some backups there that they can go to eventually. Guillorme is a good fielder, and he hit very well last year. So, I mean, should, Lindor leave next year or anything, Maurizio would have another year of experience. Hopefully, if we get to play minor league baseball and Major League Baseball for that matter. That's the other issue that concerns me a little bit is, and they can't worry about this. The Mets, as a team, can't worry about this. But we, or I, as a fan, can worry about it. And, whether or not there's even going to be baseball. We don't know. We don't know at all. This country could be put into another lockdown on January 21st, which would not surprise me, which could be for 6 to 8 weeks. And that would take us well into the baseball season. So we'll be getting a shortened season again. We're going into a CBA. The next year or two is going to be a real super mess for baseball. we already know the world's in a super mess. So, but baseball's going to be in a super mess the next year or two with everything going on. Let's just hope they can get the games in and hope that we can go to a game. Other news, because it's been such a long time since we've been on the air. The Mets have a general manager, as you all well know. Jared Porter is the general manager. Let me just check the notes here. They signed James McCann. You know that already. Trevor May signed already. That's old news. How about the coaching staff? Let's see. We've got Luis Rojas, as we all know, will be back as manager. Dave Joss is going to be back as the bench coach. Tony Tarasco will be serving as the first base coach with additional outfield and base running duties. Hitting coach Chili Davis, pitching coach Jeremy Hefner, assistant pitching coach Jeremy Accardo, bullpen coach Ricky Bonas, third base coach Gary DeSaucina, and assistant hitting coach Tom Slater will all be returning to the staff this season. So the only real changes was Dave Joss and Tony Tarasco. And that's not too big of a shakeup for a new regime coming in. So players are familiar with them. They'll know the coaches. So except for the new players coming in, McCann, Lindor, Carrasco. We didn't speak much about Carrasco, but let's do this. Let's take a break and find out where the brakes are on this thing. Let's take a break and be back right after this.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for interesting baseball talk, opinions, and history.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for barbecue recipes, tips, and interviews from the world of barbecue. If you like baseball and if you like barbecue, then tune in to Baseball and BBQ. Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and BaseballTalkRadio.com.
Wouldn't it be great if you could get a PhD in life through baseball? Welcome to Baseball PhD, a tour company for your brain. 30 major league teams, 100 places to see. Let's touch them all as we make the road trip of a lifetime.
Check out my Twitter page at MetsMusings1 and check out a Facebook group. It's at facebook.com/MetsMusings. Go check it out and don't forget to call the hotline. It's 516-619-6341.
Okay, and we're back, and I've got a great guest today, and I want to get to him. But let's talk a little bit about Carlos Carrasco. Terrific pitcher. Had some health issues last year. I believe he had leukemia. Has been clean. It's under control. I can't think of the word they call it now. But if he can come back to his old form, he will be a fine pickup for the Mets. So now our rotation looks like DeGrom and Carrasco and Peterson, and I'm missing the other two guys. Oh, Matz. And I guess they'll have somebody fight it out for the fifth starter. They still need another starter. Don't think the need is there to go after a guy like Bauer now. That's another thing that this deal does. It would almost seem to take Bauer out of the equation, keep Springer in. We need the center fielder, but it takes the money that would have went to a Bauer and maybe give it to an Odorizzi, and some other guys. Of course there are. There are always other guys. There are some other pitchers that are available that are Paxton. That's the guy I was thinking. Maybe even Corey Kluber. They're going to look at Kluber. He's going to have a throwing session. So we will see, how that works out. But he might be somebody too, former Cy Young guy and a teammate of Carrasco. So then they may have to bring back Mookie Callaway as the pitching advisor or something, because he had these guys in Cleveland. I'm sure they'll give him a call and talk to him about it. All right, let's go to. I have a pre-recorded interview that I did before Christmas with author David Russell. So let's go to that right now. And joining me this week is the author of a great new book. His name is David Russell, and he's written some bios on two guys that I happen to have interviewed, and great guys, Rod Gaspar and one of my favorite people in all the sports world, Tom Gamboa. And David's got a new book out, as I said, called Faith to Futile, Fabulous to Futile in Flushing. David, sorry about that. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
As I said, you wrote some interviews with bios, I should say, with Tom Gamboa and Rod Gaspar, and funny enough, both of them were on this show.
I like talking to some of the guys who may not be the household names, and certainly they're not. But I met covering the Brooklyn Cyclones, and he was the manager there for a few years. He was so funny and insightful in the interviews. He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Okay," and we wrote a book. and then Rod, we had a mutual after the first book I did come out, and funny. He goes, "I'm kind of a no-name guy." I go, "I know. That's why I want to do a book for." He goes, "Okay."
Right.
It came out 2019. Nice, timing, 50th anniversary of '69.
Yeah, and I had him on because I was trying to get as many of those guys on as I could. And Gamboa, actually, I used to do a Cyclones podcast and interviewed him once a year. But I would talk to him throughout the year, but I'd interview him, like do a State of the Union type of deal with the Cyclones, and really one of the nicest guys I've ever talked to. He's a gentleman, and I have a picture somewhere that we took in Staten Island, of all places, and I went back to MCU Park when the Israeli game in the World Game Baseball Classic was playing, Israel and Brazil, and he had just joined the team as a bench coach to help out, and I got him to sign the picture, so I have that in a special place. It was so nice of him to sign it for me, but just a great guy.
One of the best, and he was able to teach some of those guys how to deal with the wind at Coney Island.
Right.
He was the expert, pop-ups. Could you imagine now Brooklyn is a full season team? Imagine being there in April.
Well, we're going to find out, right?
boy, that's going to be some cold games.
I went opening day on June, I forget what, it was a few years ago. And opening night, and it was in the end of June, I think, June 25th. And it was that game that went like 20 innings or something like that. It was the extra inning game. They kept playing and playing and playing. We stayed, my wife and I, and we froze. And that was June. So you've got to bundle up for April and May, I guess.
This was 2016. I remember this. See, I got to cheat because I was in the press box, so I could stay warm. Opening night was 20 innings, and they lost. The next day, I actually went to Staten Island to see them play, and they lost 10 innings. 2 nights after that, they came back to Brooklyn and lost in 17 innings.
Yeah, right.
It was like the long weekend from hell. And
Yeah.
the 17th inning game was that game.
Wacky. That was a wacky
Nelson
start.
Figueroa was there. Nelson Figueroa was there before the game. Maybe this one. You're getting into the 14th, 15th inning, and we're looking at each other, and he's shooting me these. It looks like you did this to me somehow.
Well, let's hope that this year maybe we'll have a mild April in May, but it should be interesting. And I just might revive that. I used to do a podcast on the Cyclones, and I might just revive it this year, being that they're going to full season. But let's talk about this new book that you have out. It is called Fabulous the Futile in Flushing. It's a year-by-year history of the New York Mets. And first off, it's out by Summer Game Books, and you're a lifetime Met fan, right?
Yeah, started the first game I went to was 9, and started going a tiny bit 9. It was really the first year of, okay, I guess this is my life now.
Yeah. Like the rest of us.
Yeah.
So you've been suffering with us since then, and tell us a little bit. I'm sorry?
They hooked me in with those 99 and 2000 seasons.
I don't know how the heck I got hooked in.
I joke with Dad because, 99 2000, the two best teams in baseball were the Mets and Yankees.
Yeah.
Maybe the Braves, so 2 and 3. And, my dad started following in the 1960s. The Mets finished 9th in the NL that year. The Yankees were 10th in the AL.
Wow. I know. I was following the Mets since '62 when they started because my mother was a big New York Giants fan, and when National League Baseball came back with the Mets, well, that's the way we had to go. And it was close to living in Queens. It was close once they moved to Shea. That was beautiful. You'd hop on the 7 train, and that was it. We didn't have to worry about going up to the Bronx anymore, and because we would go to the Yankee games. I mean, I started watching baseball. I guess went to my first game. It was 1961. God, that was a long time ago. I'm ancient now. But so it's been a long time for me. But so tell us a little bit about this book. How did it come about? And what made you take this direction in it?
Well, the idea I had been kicking around was maybe a book about the Mets opening day games because they have a very unique history of the day. But you could kind of line and see what happened each opening day, so it kind of kept expanding and publisher at Summer Game Books said maybe just do a whole encompassing history, just season by season, just 4 or 5 pages each year, and to set it up where you have one section for the off season, and here's here are the players that came and went, here's the hype, here's all the the predictions, and then what happened in the actual season, and then some of the fallout, and usually there's the pattern of they get somebody, then everybody hypes them up. And they go, if everything breaks right, this could be our year. And then the season goes off the rails, and then they bring in new players. Rinse, cycle, repeat.
Yeah, we know that.
Now, here's the answer at third base. Here's the answer at field. This time for sure.
And so did you have to then go and pitch this idea? And how does that aspect of it work?
No, this is Summer Game Books was pretty good with it very early on. And then them saying, well, maybe if you do the year by year one, and I gave them a few sample chapters, and they liked it, and gave me the contract, and then it moved from there.
Now, being a young guy and writing about, you cover from 1962 to 2019. those early years, those 30 years before you started attending games and all. what kind of research did you have to do to find out about all of that stuff?
But try to watch some videos. I mean, thank God for YouTube and thank God for baseball.com and some old news articles and old Sports Illustrated articles. This is one of those where if it was 20 years ago, I probably couldn't have done something like this. But the internet being what it is now, it's I joke, I was fortunate to even come to school getting my papers with the, I don't know if you had to go to the library and get a microfiche or whatever you had to do.
Right. Hey.
Yeah, I'm so spoiled by it, to be honest, but I couldn't have done this without it. I still worked hard, but I can admit I'm spoiled.
And did it take how long was the process to putting the book together?
On and off for a few years. Like that, maybe 2.5 years or so.
All right. And so, as we said, you were a lifetime Mets fan. And who was your favorite player growing up as a kid?
Yeah, I think, Piazza was Piazza. The greatest infield ever with Ventura and Ordonez and Alfonso and Olerud. Ricky Henderson is, icon, who stole 37 bases when he was 40. So up and down the roster, it was there that year. This is a very interesting team.
Yeah, that was a great team they had with Olerud and all of those guys, and so good to almost get to the playoffs. Got close, but couldn't make it.
99, falling short against Atlanta in the Kenny Rogers ending, but still a great season up until then.
And so in writing this book, any surprises about anything strike you as you wrote the book?
I think the one guy I felt so bad for in researching this book was Rusty Staub, because they traded him after the 75 season. Now, 1975, he's the first Met ever to drive in 100 runs in a season, and they immediately trade him to Detroit for Mickey Lolich. So here's one of the great seasons in Met history up to that point, and they trade him for a fourth starter. And then a few years later, they sign him back, and he's only 450 hits away from 3,000. And if he stays in the American League with the DH, he probably gets there.
Yeah.
And instead, the Mets bring him in. They go play at first base. And then they turn around and sign Dave Kingman. And they go, actually, bad for him reading this. They go, if it wasn't for the Mets, he'd probably be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Well, I think he should be anyway. He had that kind of numbers, 1,000 hits in both leagues. I mean, he did it. He did it all for in two different leagues, if you will. So
amazing hitter. And if you combine the hits and walks, he was actually on more than 4,000 times, which is very rare company.
Yeah.
But he just hasn't been able to get in.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, after doing all of this research, what was the greatest season other than the championship series and seasons? What to you was the greatest season that they ever had?
Well, if we're not counting 69 and 86, or if we're not counting a year that they went to the World Series, 84 and 85, I think would have to be up there. 84, in a way, because they'd been so bad since trading Seaver, and they weren't expected to be that good in 84, and Gooden just burst on the scene, and Davey Johnson was in his first year, and they won 90 games, kind of out of nowhere. And if the Cubs hadn't traded for Rick Sutcliffe, and he goes 16-1, the Mets would have won the division.
Yep.
So that stands out. And then 85, kind of building off 84 and just falling short. And, because John Tudor pitched, 10 shutouts in 1 year for St. Louis.
Yeah.
And, they had a great team, too.
Those damn Cardinals.
85 and 87.
Yeah.
And Terry Pendleton.
And what about the? What would you say is the greatest game that the Mets were ever involved in?
Well, I think you got to go back to Game 6 against Boston, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's tough to go against that one.
Yeah, that's and when you think about it, there's been a couple of great ones. Game 6 against Houston that year as well, and of course the Mike Piazza home run game after 9/11. I think that could be thrown in the mix as well. As
certainly up there.
And
I think the Game 6 in Houston, the thing that's amazing to me is they had played Game 5 the day before in New York because of a rainout.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Carter caught all 12 innings, got the game-winning single. Then they had to fly to Houston, and then the next day he caught all 16 innings.
Right. He slept well though after that.
Well, not on that plane ride home if the stories are true.
Well, I think he was in the back of the plane.
Yeah.
He was with the teetotal.
Yeah, I've read it was $30,000 worth of damage, and I've also read $100,000 worth of damage. Either way, it's you're talking about a very entertaining flight,
right? And greatest moment, if you could take a moment in all your research, what did you in your opinion, what was the greatest moment of the history of the Mets?
If you to choose from, I think I'd have to go with winning the World Series in '69. Cleon catching Davy Jones' flyout, winning that first championship, and the fans coming out. I think that's got to be it. Nothing like the first championship, and how unexpected it all was, and the combination of things that had to go right for that to happen.
Yeah, that was certainly an interesting season and an interesting playoffs in that one. Now let's take a look at the worst. Which did you think was the worst season in Mets history? And let's not count 62 because I think, see, to me, having lived through that 62 season, I don't think it was one of their worst. So, but I mean, I could be wrong.
No. Well, the only thing about 62 is, Richie Ashburn was the MVP of that team. And he always joked, he goes, well, what are they trying to say? I was most valuable on the worst team ever. And so they gave him a boat because he was the team MVP, and then he docked it somewhere and it sank.
Right.
Kind of. I think the two that stand out, I think 1992 with the worst team money could buy. And, all the expectations when they got Bonilla and, this year they have, Eddie Murray and a team of stars up and down and being so terrible. And I would also throw in 2009 because you have the break from 06, 07, and 08 still fresh. You're moving into Citi Field. You have all these expectations. The bullpen was atrocious in 08, and now you signed, J.J. Putz and K-Rod, and Sports Illustrated picked them to win the World Series, and they lost 92 games.
Yeah.
So that was really brutal. And 2017 was a frustrating one. Also coming off, 15 and 16, and the expectations were high, and then every single Mets seemed to get in. I think Mets fans could probably be medical experts now. They know everything about, throwing arms and lats and elbows and shoulders and how much you should be throwing and how fast.
Yeah, that's true. I think we're all getting to that point as baseball fans when you're, between medical doctors and becoming scientists with the velocity and the takeoff velocity and all of that stuff. It's just it's crazy.
You need to be like in Mensa to understand what's happening in the game now.
That's right. So, what are you working on now? Anything special? Anything new coming up for you?
Always just kicking a few ideas around. Maybe, see if I talk to some, kind of along the lines of Gamboa and Gasper. Maybe if I talk to some less famous Mets and kind of just seeing where they are now. Just an idea. Always looking around.
You got to get George Theodore in there somehow, the Stork. He's like a popular guy, but like, a lot of people don't know much about him. Benny Ambayani's another guy that I always like too. It's amazing how we have these guys that are, to the fan of a team, these guys are like almost superstars, but in their whole career, they're not really, superstars, but they did some great things when they were on your team, and how they become like iconic players for your team. It's an amazing thing in baseball how that happens.
They were part of Met history, just like the more famous guys were, and maybe they weren't as impressive as Tom Seaver or Keith Hernandez or Mike Batson, but they were there, blue and orange. That was one of the reasons I wanted to do the Rod Yasper book. There's so much has been talked about 1969 and all that stuff. I go, what if you took one guy on that team who wasn't famous and you looked at his life? What happened? You only year of your life. So what happened before and after?
Yeah, that's true. Now, with this book, is this the kind of book where you would update it periodically and add to it? Like, did you keep notes on this season in the construct of the book, just so if they say in 5 years, we want to update it, you could go back and update it? Is it that kind of thing you could do?
Well, it is a book that I think could be updated in a few years. If I could talk to the publisher about that. 2020 would be a weird.
It would be a short chapter or a shorter chapter.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, I couldn't believe that last weekend. When the Mets had less than like a 1% chance of making the playoffs, and they needed all this help. They needed the Brewers to do this, and they needed the Giants to do that, and they needed the Phillies to do this, and they had to win games against the Nationals, but it wasn't going to matter because none of the other stuff was going to happen.
Right.
And somehow all the other stuff actually happened. And then they couldn't beat Washington.
They couldn't beat them when they had to. Well, that's what happens, I guess. And how do you feel about the new ownership taking over?
It seems promising. He hasn't lost a game yet, so that's good. I liked him, signing James McCann. I thought was doubly nice because one year having an all-star catcher.
Oh, yeah.
And it was Jerry Reinsdorf's catcher who, Reinsdorf going from behind the team, so that was cool.
Yeah. And of course the new front office with Jared Porter. I don't know if you saw the interview with him yesterday. Very interesting, and seems like a good pick for the team. So it should be an interesting season if we get to play it, or I should say when we get to play it. I read today that the owners want to delay the opening, but the players don't. So we could be into some trouble there.
Trouble again? Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know they were thinking about May. Not sure, but if they could get the fact that they played the 2020 season, I'm not concerned about 2021. If they can make it 2020, they can make it through anything.
Right. And
I just don't. I don't want to see the 7-inning doubleheaders again, though.
No. Well, we'll see them in Brooklyn. So, and the guy at second base. So, in extra innings, I should say, the man at second. So,
sure. For now, we'll see if. John Smoltz was saying during some game on Fox that, what if they began every inning with the guy on second? Okay.
Oh, my God. Why don't they just give him a run then in every inning and go from there? I mean, come on, Just start every inning, bases loaded, and see how good the pitcher is at getting out of jams. That's crazy.
Well, we could really speed up and start every inning with 2 outs and a 3-2 count.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, David, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule and coming on the show and talking a little bit about the book. And good luck with it. It's out there. It makes a great read. It's easy to read. It's a short history. Well, it's not short. It's 358 pages, but it's a great history.
Chapter is short.
Yeah. And it makes a great Christmas present or a Hanukkah present if you still haven't gotten a gift. So go out and get it. It's called Fabulous to Futile in Flushing, a year-by-year history of the Mets by David Russell. Go out and pick it up today. It's available. Well, it's available where? All over the place, right?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, if you still like shopping in stores.
If you're allowed to. And once again,
show off you get to eat indoors on Long Island.
Yeah. Once again, thank you, David, so much for coming on the show. I hope that we can talk again in the future.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad you enjoyed the book.
Okay. And I'll be back right after this. Okay, we're back, and I hope you enjoyed that interview with author David Russell. I really enjoyed the book, and I hope you'll go pick up a copy of it today. You can get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the good bookstores, all the online stores, or you can get it right from him. So please go do that today. Support our authors. They're what got us through the pandemic last year, and depending upon what happens this year, they may be getting us through that again. And don't forget, these guys are a lot of these guys aren't getting the big advances on their works, and they're hawking it themselves. They're not getting a lot of publicity. They can't do book signings now because of the pandemic. They can't do a lot of things. So it's up to us to try to help them out as best as possible and, make their books successful so they can make some more money and write some more books. I did want to mention one other thing. Of course, my good friends at Baseball and Barbecue, always a shout out to them. Go check their podcast. And there's a new podcast you might enjoy called BT Talks Baseball. It's on YouTube, I believe. You can catch it, but he's on live every Sunday night at the 365 Sportscast website. So you may want to go check that out. BT Talks Baseball. He had John Matlack on and some other good guests last week. I'm sure he'll be talking about this trade that occurred today. But I just wanted to get on the air and do a quick show and get going for 2021 here as we start a brand new season. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank my guest, David Russell, and I want to thank you all for listening and watching. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, CastBox, YouTube, wherever you listen or watch the podcast. Hit the subscribe button. That helps me grow the community and earn new listeners. So until next time, remember, keep the faith, stay optimistic, and let's go Mets. And I'll see you next time on another edition of Mets Musings.